People worried about being mugged, about being robbed, about being carjacked, about their cars being stolen, about groups of gangs coming into their neighborhood and knocking things around. There's a real quality of life issue with crime in the city, and I think you can talk to anybody at any of the city's 8 wards, and they'll tell you that.
Welcome to Political Perspectives. I'm Hugo Gurdon, Editor-in-Chief of The Washington Examiner. If you're joining us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. Become part of a growing number of people who are getting their information and their news this way. I'm joined, as I usually am, by Byron York, who's Chief Political Correspondent for The Washington Examiner. And Byron, for the last several days, people have been seeing in Washington the arrival of National Guard troops, National Guard vehicles, camo uniforms, etc. This is part of Donald Trump's effort, which sort of began perhaps 2 or 3 days ago, and his promise to eradicate or radically reduce crime rates in D.C. How did this begin? What was the sort of trigger for it? And what authority does he have to do it?
Well, Trump believes that Washington, D.C. is a special place. It is the capital of the United States. People come here from all over the country, all around the world. He wants it to be beautiful, clean, and safe. So those are all good things. And actually, when he says Washington, D.C. is a special place, he's correct legally too, because it's not in a state. It's a district, a federal district, and it was created in the Constitution. In Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which gave Congress complete control in all cases whatsoever over the District of Columbia. Now, in addition to that, the President specifically commands the D.C. National Guard, so he can call them out in the National Guard. And in 1973, Congress granted the district home rule. It's called the Home Rule Act of 1973. It allowed them to vote for president, elect a city council, do all sorts of things that any city in a normal state would do. But if you look at the 1973 Home Rule Act, there are provisions saying Congress is still in control of everything. Don't forget that. Plus, if the president decides that there is a need or an emergency to take over the police force, he can do it. He can't do it beyond 30 days. So this is not the new normal. This is not a new permanent situation. But he can do it for 30 days, and that's the authority he has. And you haven't really seen a lot of serious objections to the legal basis for doing this because he has the authority.
So he has the law on his side, the Constitution on his side. What is he trying to deal with? I mean, is crime getting worse? Is crime getting better? And why now?
Well, we've had a big controversy in the district over crime statistics. There have been allegations of cooking the books, and by that I mean police officials who record serious crimes as less serious crimes, so that it appears that serious crime like assault with a deadly weapon is actually going down. So which way is it going? I'm not entirely sure. If you look at murder, which is the least likely to be faked, the district had it had 274 murders in 2023. Bad year. Had 187 the next year, 2024. This year, there have been about 100 so far, and it looks like the city is probably on track for about 170. And there's really 2 ways of looking at that. You think, well, it's good that murders have gone down from 187 to 170. On the other hand, 170 murders is a lot of murders. And in addition to that, you have an enormous amount of what you call quality of life crimes. People worried about being mugged, about being robbed, about being carjacked, about their cars being stolen, about groups of gangs coming into their neighborhood and knocking things around. There's a real quality of life issue with crime in the city, and I think you can talk to anybody at any of the city's 8 wards, and they'll tell you that.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the fudging of the numbers, because this is not just a phenomenon in D.C. It's the case all over the country that in recent years, since 2021 in fact, the numbers that the FBI has seem to have become increasingly unreliable. New reporting requirements were imposed by the Biden administration, and so that discouraged people the departments to report to the FBI. But in addition to that, the fact that radical left-wing prosecutors were not prosecuting people discouraged people from actually reporting crimes. So from 2021, the figures produced by the FBI, which are reported crimes, and the DOJ, the Department of Justice figures, which are about people's perception of crime, radically diverge. They used to track, which suggests that they were both pretty accurate. Now they diverge, which suggests the FBI ones are inaccurate. So you have this situation where the numbers that of actual crimes recorded appears not to be really high, but everybody's perception is that they are high. There's a political cost, it seems to me. It seems like a very bad idea for any party, but it seems to be what the Democrats are doing now, is saying, look at these numbers, you're really much safer than you were. If people think they're not safe, it's not politically wise to tell them, no, you're fine.
That's right, and they know that. Yeah. Either they've been a victim or target of crime, or they know people. And there's a curfew in the city right now for people under 18 years of age. If you go into a drugstore, the toothpaste and the shampoo are locked up, and you have to go find somebody to unlock the case for you to buy a tube of toothpaste. Now, there's a reason for that, and the reason is crime. And during these shoplifting epidemics, when people would walk in to Targets and drugstores and all sorts of places with just a big black trash bag and just fill it up with stuff and walk out unmolested, uncaught, that is a major theft not recorded in any statistics. So I think you can't fake a low crime rate when people are actually seeing crimes happen and scared of it happening to them.
And although, for example, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House for the Democrats, excoriated the move by Trump to take over the police force and to impose his own sort of law and order, it was a much different kind of response, for example, from Muriel Bowser, the mayor, who initially said, more security forces on the streets will actually be helpful. So she recognizes the sort of local desire for more law and order.
Yeah, she has actually shown a little sense in some of these issues. And two things. People see how lame the response to crime was in 2021, 2, and 3. In 2022 and 23, the District of Columbia City Council passed an insane crime bill. It lowered the punishments for all sorts of crimes, all violent crimes, all crimes with guns, carjackings, everything. It just reduced the sentences for all of that. The mayor, to her credit, vetoed it. The city council turned around and overturned the veto.
Right.
And it took Congress to intervene, because they have power over this, and Republicans and Democrats went along with this to overturn this district crime bill, and Joe Biden, the president at the time, didn't say much about it, but he let it happen. Yeah. One other story about the lameness of law enforcement in those years. In 22 and 23, carjackings were just through the roof, and traditional auto thefts were absolutely through the roof. The Attorney General for the District of Columbia, it's kind of a grand title, the Attorney General of the District of Columbia writes a letter to the federal government demanding that the federal government issue a total recall of cars made by Hyundai and Kia because they were too easy to steal. They needed to have more security equipment on board, according to the District of Columbia, which had a high car theft rate. So the way you attack this wave of car theft is to blame the automakers as opposed to the thieves.
It's just another example, as indeed many Democratic reactions are now to Trump's efforts to make excuses for a problem rather than actually trying to deal with the problem. And that's why Trump retains his popularity. He is seen by people to at least be trying to fix a problem, which they agree is a problem. They don't deny it's a problem. So let's turn our attention now away from that and to Alaska, where at the end of this week, President Trump is going to be having a summit with President Putin. Now, The White House describes this as going to be something of a listening exercise for the United States. Secretary of State Rubio says that Trump wants to look President Putin in the eye, and perhaps this is a better thing than another phone call which doesn't get anywhere. But isn't this another way in which Putin has already perhaps gained an advantage, because the 30 days or the deadline that Trump set for him to agree a ceasefire has already been passed, and now he's got a summit, and then there's going to be more time. It's a way for Putin to string it out, isn't it?
Yeah, and Trump has indicated, Trump clearly knows that Putin has been jerking him around. It's just obvious. And Trump said, when he announced that he was doing this, they said, well, how do you know if Putin is actually sincere, if he's serious about this? And Trump says, I'll probably know in the first couple of minutes.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
And so it may be a 2-minute summit, for all I know, because I haven't seen any indication that Putin is serious about this. Now, it seems clear to me, and there are a lot of people who do not like hearing this, but the war is going to be ended with the ceding of territory to Russia, and maybe Ukraine will get a little bit as well. But that's just how it's going to end. But Putin has not been interested in doing even that.
Right.
So here's the situation now is, to get him off the mark, Trump is going to have to credibly threaten all the things that he's been threatening, which means he's going to actually have to do them. So if there are these secondary sanctions that can really put a bite on Putin selling oil to places, especially China, he's going to have to actually do them.
Right.
Congress has got a bill ready to go on that. Trump is going to have to actually pull the trigger on some of these things if Putin remains intransigent.
Yeah. I think the last point that I'd like to make on this is that we've arrived at this point to a great extent because of the way that the Biden administration handled Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were a lot of weak indications from Biden to Russia that an invasion might be quite acceptable if it was a small incursion, etc. And then over the course of 2 to 3 years, the Biden administration's policy seemed to be, we're going to arm Ukraine so that it can't lose, but not so that it can win.
Right.
And the public, the American public that is, were asked to go along with a policy where there was no obvious end to this. And not surprisingly, as things normally happen, they eventually became fed up with this. And so Trump has inherited a position where there's less support now amongst Americans for a kind of endless continuation of this, even if America's national interest is served by Russia not winning this. The situation that Trump has inherited, perhaps he's dealing with it well, perhaps he's not dealing with it well, but it is one that he inherited from an absolutely hapless administration.
Yeah, and this sounds stupid, but it all depends on whether he succeeds or not. If he succeeds, he can say, listen, I've been over backwards to convince Putin to do this. People were criticizing me. They say I was going easy on him, but here we are. We've got a settlement. But if we don't get a settlement, people will say Trump bent over backwards and got nothing out of it. Right. So it is. But Americans have become very impatient with this. There were a lot of Americans, like me, who were worried about the depletion of actual U.S. munitions stockpiles around the world, because what we weren't giving to Ukraine, we gave to Israel, and then we're still catching up right now in munitions manufacturing. That's important, but Trump he's got some tools.
Right.
You got to use them.
Right. Well, that's where we'll leave it, Byron. And thank you very much for joining me here, and thank you all for joining us. Join us again next time on Political Perspectives.